I just love a fun theme for any season that comes around. This episode has 10 DIYs with apple ideas to decorate and craft with for your home. Welcome friends to my channel. I'm Heidi. This is my DIY channel. I'm so grateful you're here. All right, now let's get crafting. For this project, we're going to be using a large 14-inch wired wreath form, this bag of apples that I picked up from Amazon, some fabric, this burlap ribbon, and then a whole bunch of green florals from the DT. Now I'm going to take that ribbon and I'm going to just coil it around that wreath form because this is going to allow me an easier way to be able to put on all of these picks that I'm taking apart to glue it onto something to have a nice sturdy base. You don't have to do this, but this is just another technique I thought that I would try and share with all of you, and I actually really liked it a lot. So I went ahead and just tucked underneath all of these wispy, which is always the first one I like to put down. I like to put down the most flowy, wispy looking greenery pick first because it really makes it look more natural to have those out at the very back of the wreath. And then I keep building out from there, going into the smallest things. So now I'm putting on, I think it was called fall grass. I think that's what this pick is called. I loved it because the majority of it is green and it goes into yellow at the very end. It's not an actual flower head that you could just like pop off. It's one big greenery pick. I loved it. So I wanted to make sure I got that on here too. And then now I'm going to come in with these berries. And I used the leaves as well because I always like to try to use all of the pick. And I put down the leaves and I glued them onto the ribbon to conceal the ribbon a little bit more. And now I'm coming in with the berries and I'm just tucking those and laying them as flat as I can because these are a little bit tricky to work with sometimes. So just lay them down as flat as you can. And now I'm going to come in with another green pick. This one definitely has a more fall look to it. And I just love the colors contrast with the yellow and then the really bright, not fall green leaves. So now I'm going to take my apples. And at this point, I love how much we've built up all the greenery that it's ready for the apples. I'm going to go ahead and take a skewer stick and poke that into the apple because these have a sleek surface and over time they're just going to pop right off. So I went ahead and put a skewer stick in it and hot glued those all together, and then I'm going to add more hot glue to the stick and then put it into the wreath. This is going to allow it to really bond and adhere to all of the stuff on the wreath and the ribbon so that these apples don't pop off and fall. And then the very last thing, I decided to do a black and white gingham bow, and I think this turned out so beautiful for the fall. I cannot wait to hang it up. For this DIY, we're going to be using red different pattern fabrics, 2 solid green fabrics, this printable of an apple and a leaf, and then a stick from my yard. Start by cutting out your printable, and once you've got that all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and take all of these different stacks of fabrics, and I'm just going to cut them all out at the same time because I want to have a little bit of a rough edge to these because we're going for a farmhouse country feel for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut around my apple. You could definitely pin your fabric to the pattern, but I'm just kind of, like I said, freehanding it. Then I'm also going to do the same thing with my leaves. I'm going to cut out a whole bunch of them. And to put your apples together, you're going to need 2 sides. So you can see here that I doubled up each piece of pattern or solid color fabric, and I'm going to slowly go around with my hot glue, just gluing all the edges and leaving an opening so that I can stuff the apples itself. Once I've gotten it to the thickness that I want and stuffed inside my apple, I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of twine that's long enough that we're going to be adding to the stick in just a few moments. And you're just going to put that little twine right down in there, hot glue it in, and then make sure your opening is flat enough to be able to add a little bit more glue. and then just pinch that down into place. If it starts to buckle and feel too chunky, it might be that you just have too much batting in there. You might have to take some out. Then for my leaves, you can see here that I'm gluing 2 of them together to make them thicker. And then I'm going to add that right to where the twine and the apple meet up, so it looks like a little leaf on our apple. And then I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to tie a simple little bow. Make sure I get the length of the tails that I want on my bow. And then once I do, I can just go ahead and glue that right in place where the apple and the leaf meet up. And it just looks so darling. I love the little bow touch with the twine. Once I've got my bows and all of my apples constructed, I'm going to go ahead and take all of those long twines that we were putting into the apple, and we're going to just figure out the different lengths that we want. And then I'm going to just take some hot glue and wrap my twine around the branch that I got out of my yard, and then I'm going to have all of these different apples at different lengths. Now at this point, all the apples have been glued to the stick, and we're going to go ahead and take some long pieces of raffia to create a nice big beautiful bow. I went ahead and glued that to my stick, and then I'm going to go ahead and just give some of the ends a trim so that they're not too long going into the apple. At this point, it's ready to be hung up with this last little bit of twine added. Just do a couple double knots and a loop so you can add it to your front door or in front of a mirror or wherever you would like to decorate with it for the fall. We are going to be taking one of these crates, some of these stacking blocks, a wood circle, and then a skewer stick. And we are going to be building a little apple crate. I thought this one was so fun, and I had a good time bringing together all of these random pieces to make something special. So I glued together 2 of those stacking blocks and then stapled them. And now I'm going to put those aside for a second and add on 2 of these stacking blocks. They actually fit perfectly inside of these crates. I'm using some wood glue and some hot glue to glue them into place to make sure that they're nice and sturdy in there. And then I put it over on the edge of my table and just shot in 2 staples to make sure that they would hold in place. Then those 2 that I had earlier where I stapled them together and glued them, I'm going to drill 2 holes in the ends, and I'm going to bring them together, and this is going to be our little wheelbarrow, the little wheel at the end. So I'm going to put 1 in, add some more hot glue, slide on that wood circle, and then I'm going to add on some more glue and add on that last other side. Now this is going to be able to make it look just like a wheelbarrow on the front. And I just think that this part is just so fun and really easy to do. Once I've got that all in place, I'm going to go ahead and also slide those into, again, the crates because they fit perfectly in there, nice and snug. And then I went ahead and made sure that not only was it snug in there, but I added in some hot glue, making sure that it locked everything in place. Then I'm going to take 2 more of these stacking blocks, and I'm going to just add them, and this is going to create the handles of our little wheelbarrow. And I'm going to use my staple gun on the inside. It fits in there perfectly to be able to staple those in to make sure they don't come out or pop off. Now at this point everything has been assembled, and I can go ahead and paint my crate white. I went on the inside and the outside with just 1 coat, and then on the handles, basically anywhere these stacking blocks were, I painted those all red. And I didn't want to bump into the white, so I'm just taking my time with an angled brush. And I also did not want to get any paint on my wood wheel because I just thought it was so cute to leave that raw wood. This part was really fun. I just took my time going around it and making sure that I got all of those painted red. I really love the way that they just kind of pop and stand out with the white crate. Once everything was dry, I went ahead and took some of my black and white gingham fabric, and I'm just going to cut a couple strips and put those inside of my crate and glue it down on the edges, so it kind of is flapping over the side. I thought this was so perfect and just really darling to be able to now fill inside with whatever you want. And so since I'm doing this for fall, I'm going to add in some cute apples, and I will link my apples down below. I purchased these off of Amazon. And then I'm going to take some of these garden chalkwood signs, and I'm just going to pop off the stick and glue that right onto the crate. So that way I can put whatever I want on these little signs using my chalk pin. I'm going to put one on both sides because I thought that would be really adorable, so wherever it's sitting you can see one of the signs. And I'm going to make these apples $1 for each apple, and at this point it's ready to be used for the fall season. You know, you can find these all over the place, and I definitely did not pay 99 cents for them. I got them from my thrift store, and I paid about 50 cents for each one because it was a half off day. So I found 2 of these, and I thought, how cute would it be to paint one of them red, the top and the bottom, and then one of them green. Now, earlier I mentioned that I took some of this canvas fabric and I painted it green to create myself some leaves. Here I am, I'm showing myself painting that canvas or drop cloth type fabric, and I'm just going to paint it all green and add in some different shades to make it look like a leaf color, so when I cut them into leaves it'll look really cute. So here are my terracotta pots. When you take the bottom water tray and put it on top, it turns into an apple. I think this is so cute, and you can do it with all different sizes of the terracotta pots. The bottom and the pot always match up really well, almost perfectly, to make it look like an apple. So here I am, I'm going to add on some E6000 and some hot glue onto these little wood logs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. They're in a little bag, and we are going to just glue that right on top of the apple or the terracotta pot lid. And we're going to tie on some raffia that is left over from a grass skirt from the summertime, and we're going to just tie on a bow. Once you've got your 2 bows on, you're going to go ahead and add on some little details that you'd like. You could leave it at this point and just stop, but you know me, I always love to take it a little bit further. So now I'm going to take a leaf and I'm going to sneak it underneath the bow, and I'm going to use a little bit of a yellow, green, red look because I love how it looked on the green terracotta pot. And then I'm going to take that fabric earlier that I painted, cut out a couple of leaves, and I'm going to add that onto my red pot. But we're going to be using that apple again, and we are going to be using these fabrics as well as some twine. Start by cutting out your felt fabric or whatever type of fabric you would like to use, but I'm using a red. You could also do a green apple, that could be really cute as well. And I'm just going to cut out 3 felt apples at the same time. Once I've got those all cut out, I will have 6 of them. And then I'm going to start working on the white part of the apple. So I'm going to cut about 1/2 inch in on my apple to make it a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to cut out 2 more of this because this is going to look like the apple has been sliced open. Then I'm going to cut out 4 black water drops, and I'm actually going to cut out 8 of them because I'm doing this for 2 of the apples. And we're going to point the point into the center, and now we're going to work on building the stem. So I'm taking some white burlap, I added on some glue, and I'm just folding it in half to make it thicker because burlap itself is kind of a soft, flowy fabric. It's not that stiff. So I'm just doubling it up so that way it's a little bit thicker and stiffer, and then I'm going to cut out the shape of a stem. I'm kind of free-handing this, but it almost looks like a little tornado that's kind of twisted to the side. And I'm going to do one of those for each of my apples, so I'm going to need 6 of these. Once I had those all cut out, I could start working on the leaves, and I'm using the leaf pattern from my printable, And I'm just going to double up the leaves for each one. So we're going to end up needing 12 of these leaves because we're double backing them to make them stronger and thicker. Now I'm just gluing everything together. I'm putting on the stem, I'm putting on the leaf, I'm putting on the seeds and the white part of the apple. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my rope and I'm going to do a loop at the end and tie a knot, and then I'm going to flip over my apples and I'm going to start gluing them on. I just did a long line of glue and then I went and added my twine on it, and then I'm going to get a scrap piece of fabric and cut it where the sides are rounded, and this is going to really hold the twine in place and also make the apples a little bit stronger while they're on this banner twine. At this point, you're all set to be able to hang it up once you add on one more loop on the other side, and it's ready to be decorated with. For this project, we're going to be using this oh so popular sign that I use here a lot on my channel. I'm going to pop off that happy holidays, take off that ribbon and staples, and then I'm going to patch those holes from the staples with some putty, dry it, and then sand it to make sure it's all the same flat surface so that I can get to my next step. Now I'm going to take some white paint and give it a nice thick coat of white paint on it, and from there I'm going to sketch on the word apples. I thought apples would be so fun because I just think apples are really cute to decorate with for the fall, and it just gives it that country charm. So at this point I went ahead and sketched out my word apples, and I'm coming back in with my thick paintbrush and I'm just kind of doing almost like a sloppy job on purpose. I wanted the letters to look thick and bulky like you would see on some type of a cute country roadside rest stop where you can pick up some, maybe like a fruit stand. I just think that this would be so cute out on a shelf for the fall time. And now I'm going to come in and just really rough it up like it has been outside in the weather for some time. I think the rougher this sign looks, the cuter it gets. And then I'm just coming in with an even darker, almost like a dark grayish brown color, and just really roughing it up. Like I said, it's been outside. Now I want to clean up the back side so we don't see the elf, which that's cute for Christmas, but we're working on the fall. So I'm going to trace out a line on the fabric for the size that I need and then just cut it off. And then I'm going to glue that to the back to really clean it up because I love a finished backside to all my signs. And this really just is so easy to do. It takes just seconds. Then on the front side, I decided this is the reason why I shifted the word apple over a little bit more. I wanted to add something to the left. So I'm now going to add on some fabric that matches the back and do a little simple knot. Added a little bit of a cute charm by kind of ruffling up the ends of that. I added in some of this boxwood, a little apple. Of course we have to add a little apple to it. So I put a little shish kebab stick down in there and glued that into place. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just add on this darling little chalk sign so we know how much our apples cost, which I'm going to decide to paint on 25 cents. Because I just think that this is the finishing touch of it and it looks so cute on a shelf. I hope you will give this one a try. I had so much fun making it and I know you will too. I am going to use one of these faux apples and a long skewer stick, and we are going to pop out the stem of this apple because we are making a faux candy apple. I love candy apples so much. It's one of my favorite treats. Leave a comment down below to let me know what's one of your favorite fall treats. So once I've cut down my dowel or my skewer stick, I'm going to poke that in and glue it in replacement of the stem. And now, if you've ever seen a candy apple, you'll know that when you dip it into caramel or chocolate and you put it on a tray, it has it pull up at the bottom. So we're going to recreate that with some hot glue. Now I went around it multiple times making sure I got it as smooth as I could, and then I placed it on a glass plate. Remember, if you try this, place it on the glass plate and not a plastic plate because it will get stuck. So with the glass plate, I'm using a butter knife and I'm just slowly easing it off the plate, and it pops off after I went around it a couple times, and it looks just like it would look if you dipped it into chocolate or caramel. And now I'm going to come in with my scissors and clean up that edge a little bit and make sure that there's no strings on that from the hot glue. And then I'm going to take brown paint that looks as close as you can get to caramel, and I'm going to add on a nice thick amount, making sure that it's able to be smooth and a thick coat. Then to make sure that I really got the look I was going for, that it got dipped in and pulled out, I'm tapping it to make sure all the paint is rolling down off the apple and it's pulling up towards the bottom of that hot glue. Friends, this project was so much fun and really easy to make. I highly recommend it. Once I had all of that paint on there and it was smooth as I can get it, I took my heat gun and very, very lightly went over it. Don't stay too long because you will start to melt the apple. And then the last thing I did was just add a darling red and white gingham bow at the top, and it's ready to be displayed. For this DIY, we are going to be using this printable that I have linked down below and some scrapbook paper. I'm going to be using 2 sheets of the same paper, and I'm going to use my apple template, and I'm just going to trace out 6 apples, and then I'm going to cut them all out. Now my paper is doubled up, so I'm actually cutting out 12 apples, and once I've got those all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and start by just folding them in half. Once I've got one of them folded in half, I'm going to take my tape gun and I'm just going to go along the edges, and then I'm going to start adhering them one to another. We are going to be sandwiching the sides all together to create a 3D stand-up apple. As you're bringing the sides together, don't be afraid to trim away any of that extra that maybe didn't line up perfectly. You could also use a cutting machine to cut out apples so that you can have a more accurate apple shape, but this works too if you don't have one. So you can see here that when I start putting all the sides, folding them in half and keep sandwiching them together, it creates this 3D apple, which is really cool and just so budget friendly for the fall. Comet decided to hop up on my desk and to be my guest for this project. He is just the funniest cat, loving him to pieces. Then once I've gotten all the way around with all 12 of my apples, I'm going to go ahead and bring in those 2 sides together, and now I can move on to my leaves. I just did a cat eye shape, and I'm going to glue the buffalo check or gingham pattern to each other so I have only polka dots showing, and I double back that so I've got those 2 pieces. I cut out 2 leaves, or technically 4 because we're going to back them onto each other. And now I'm taking a piece of burlap, I'm rolling it up and gluing it to make a stem at the top of my apple. Then I'm just going to glue it all into place and add on my leaves, and this makes the most affordable, darling apple for the fall. This project is so easy. I picked up this apple from Amazon. We are going to take one of these chalkboard sign tags, and we're just going to pop that right down into the apple and add on some greenery. I thought that this would make the cutest table name place card by putting the initials of the person who's sitting at the seat on the little chalkboard. Then I added on some twine, and with my chalk pin that you can also get from the Dollar Tree, I went ahead and wrote on the letter of the person's initial who will be sitting at that table spot, and thought that this would be so cute for the fall time if you have anyone coming over for dinner. I found this sign at the DT, and I'm going to be using the back side of it. I don't want to destroy this other side, that's the front side, so I'm going to just make sure that we try to keep it where it's able to be used on both sides. So I went ahead and patched those holes. I went ahead and punched some new holes, and then I'm just going to sand down where I put in that putty to make sure it's all smooth. Now, like I said, I love to be able to reverse signs, so I wanted to make sure I kept the other side. And on this back side, I added on a darker coat of red first, and then I'm coming in with a lighter coat of red, so it gives it that 3D look. And then I'm going to add some brown up at the top. So this can be more of a neutral apple look. I thought this was so cute. And I love that it had this metal leaf on it, and I can just turn it either way I want. So you can see on this side that the sign is still intact and still good. So if I ever want to flip it around, I can do that. But I wanted to be able to have a solid red apple because I'm going to make a really darling wreath with this red apple. Now I decided I wanted to add on a black and white gingham bow. So I always like to make my bow itself and then make the tails and glue them onto it. And then I'm just going to glue that right into place. You saw earlier that I put in that zip tie, and that's because it's going to help us be able to mount it onto a wreath. Now I'm going to take this Halloween sign that says welcome. I'm going to flip it over because I don't do the spooky part of Halloween. I like the more cute, whimsical side. So I'm actually going to make my own version of this welcome. And again, I'm still going to leave the other side intact if I ever decide to use it. But I'm deciding to do more of a neutral look. So first I put down some letter stickers, and then I went over with a little light coat, and now I went over with one solid white coat, making sure there was no bleeding underneath those stickers. And once everything was dry, I was able to remove them. This is probably the most satisfying part, is removing the stickers. Then I'm going to use my big bite to punch 2 holes out. And now it's time to start assembling it onto my wreath. So I'm making sure that I get down to the actual wreath form itself. And then I'm just zip tying on these 2 signs, and it's ready to be hung up on my door. I found these apples on Amazon. I'll link them down below my description box, but today I'm going to be using these smaller ones, this bucket, this foam square, some boxwood, and some shish kebab sticks. Start by taking your foam square and cutting it down in half, and then I'm going to just shove that down in there and glue it into place with some E6000 and hot glue. And then the other half of that foam square, I'm going to cut it down a little bit in size, and then I'm going to start to shape and round the top so that we can turn this little bucket into an apple bush. I thought this would be so cute for the fall. So go ahead and add some more hot glue in E6000 so it really bonds on there well. And then I'm going to start working on my apples. Go ahead and take your shish kebab sticks, poke them into the apple, and try not to let them go flying off like that one just did. And then you're going to go and glue in the stick at the bottom of the apple so it doesn't pop off over time. And then you're going to just sporadically place them all over this foam square until you get them to the liking that you see and desire. Now I'm going to take some hot glue, and I'm going to add in some of this moss down inside the bucket at the base. I thought that this would look really cute, as if you'd see it in your own garden. And now I'm going to take my boxwood and I'm going to cut them down so that I can place them into all of these holes that I pushed into my foam square. This is going to allow you to be able to get all of those boxwoods in there and glue them into place. And the more sprigs of this boxwood that you add, the more it really starts to transform into this little apple bush, which I think is so fun, and it's really easy to create this look. It really doesn't take much to create a beautiful home on a budget. Doing something as simple as a couple of apple DIYs for the fall season brings in that happy, warmth, whimsical feeling to any home. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful for all of you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I hope that you get a chance to be in your craft rooms today. And until the next episode, bye friends.